Hi again, lovely people. This week we have either the ninth or 10th installment of Book Chat. We're so far in by now, I am losing count.
Sophie Vlogs.
I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a bit of a mixed bag this week. I read some things which I have some feelings on, and they're not all positive. Let's go forth. I'm gonna start off with the thing that I've most enjoyed of this selection, which is Plato Symposium, translated by Robin Waterfield. For those of you interested, I have been meaning to read this for so very long. I studied classical studies at university, and this is the first time I've read an entire thing of Plato. I've read excerpts and stuff, but I've not just sat down with a book of translation and just gone, let's read some Plato. So I'm glad I have. I am pretend I didn't just drop that. I am familiar with a lot of concepts from this. I think the famous one is the one where, we're born as one and then we were split in two and then we're always trying to find our other half. A lot more complicated than that. But that's the gist. That's the famous one, which is a speech by Aristophanes in this. It's been a while since I've read ancient rhetoric, if you will. I found it interesting to read this with the awareness that the arguments that are being given are not necessarily Plato's beliefs, but they are the beliefs Plato is ascribing to fictionalized versions of real people, and then to read into that, what views is he giving to what figures, and what can you draw from this as to whether this is a implicit approval or disapproval. That's not a word, is it? Don't know. Questioning my life now. Let's soldier on. So, how does who is saying the speech affect whether or not you're supposed to be believing and agreeing with the speech? All stuff like that. The introduction of this book does an interesting talk about that. It was good. I really liked it. Hooray for Plato. Now, let's talk about something that I didn't like. This is Fallen Skies by Philippa Gregory. I bought this years ago because I like Philippa Gregory generally. I find her books quite easy to read, quite fun. There are ones I like more than others, but on the whole, it's been a perfectly pleasant reading experience with her until now. I've only ever read her books that are either Wars of the Roses or Tudor Dynasty. Whereas this is 1920s England. So I thought, that's a big change, that will be interesting, let's see. This gave me nothing that I wanted it to give me. The back is about how the main character Lily is a stage actress in the 1920s, and she meets this captain, this guy called Stephen. He was a captain in the war, decorated hero, blah 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 blah, and they get married. And then there's a tension because he expects her to give up her career, she doesn't want to, blah. I was okay, this will be interesting. We this woman fighting and struggling to have this career, which she does do, I will grant you that. I just found this book so deeply unpleasant to read. I read a review on Goodreads that was someone being to those complaining that this book is not very nice, well, that's what wartime was like. And I was first of all, fuck you. I read a lot of World War One stuff, and a lot of first-hand World War One stuff. It is horrifying, I will give you that. However, that's not why I dislike this book. I don't dislike this book because it's harrowing about the war. That I was going in expecting. I don't like this book because Stephen's a massive cock. Quite frankly. He is a vile misogynistic man, and to spend so much of this narrative just exploring the different ways in which he is abusive and demeaning to his wife just felt very tiring. I understand that you need to drive the point home that this is a man who is not nice, and I could, for a while I thought we were going to be going down the oh, this is the terrible effect of war, this is how it changed the generation, which it does touch on a bit. But that's not really the case with this guy. He was a wanker before the war, and he's a wanker after the war. He just has PTSD now. And I don't want to sound like I'm diminishing the effect of that massive event on a whole generation of men, because it was destroying, and I understand that. This wasn't really telling me that, though. This was just giving me, like, the mind of a man as he tries to crush every last ounce of joy out of this woman that he married because he thought that she would help him with his illness, but she can't. And I'm just not here for that. And I kept reading it because I kept thinking, surely we're gonna turn it around now. And we just never really did. Like, it doesn't end too badly for her, I guess, but I'm just not here for it. Not here for it. Didn't like. Let's lighten the mood with A Bachelor Establishment by Isabella Barkley, which is a pen name for Jodie Taylor, who I have mentioned before for the Chronicles of St. Mary's series, which was super great. Time-traveling historians, love it. This involves no time travel. Still fine. This tells the story of, like, a lord and lady. They're not married, like, separate lord, separate lady. Both own estates in the country next to each other. They're, like, advanced in years. I'd say, like, 60s, probably. He's been away forever due to scandal. He comes back. Someone tries to assassinate this woman, essentially, and she has to recover in his house. And they're kind of trying to figure out, like, which one of us is this person trying to kill? Who is the person trying to kill us? What the hell is going on? And also there's kind of like a romance plot going on. As with all of Jodie Taylor, it's romping good fun. It's very easy to read, it is humorous, it is like there's snarking happening. I like a good snark fest, especially on the heels of like a rubbish fest that was the book before. I don't like it as much as the Chronicles of St. Mary, but that's because I really liked the Chronicles of St. Mary, quite frankly. But it was everything I needed at the time, which was just a short little snippet of delight to help me through the rage I was feeling. And it was great. On to another book which I have complicated feelings about. Marina by Carlos Ruiz. This is the final one of his books that I have in my read pile to read, and now I am done. I have such mixed feelings. I did a video on the Niebla trilogy, which is the 3 other books of his that I've read that I've mentioned in previous book chats. And my main point there was, they're fine, but I've read the same story with different settings 3 times. This, I initially wanted to give credit for the fact that whilst there are a lot of the same elements that do reoccur in everything of his that I've now read, this was one of the more enjoyable ones of, like, the 4, essentially, like the YA ones. This was a bit creepier than some of the other ones were. Again, very gothic. There's a mystery. They're in Barcelona. It's all very gothic. This one has, like, Frankenstein vibes to it. It's got some hella creepy shit going on. I have, like, a with it, which is something which is not entirely thought out yet, hence why it's an rather than like a word. And I only finished this yesterday, and I'm muddling these feelings over. My camera died mid-sentence, and the lighting is changing, so I'm just going to be super duper quick. But, Jen Campbell did a video on her channel called Villains and Deformity, where she talks about how fictional portrayals of deformity influence the real-life treatment that people get. And it's super interesting. I'll link to it below, really recommend it. But it's really affected how I have experienced this, because deformity and also mental illness play a massive part in this book, and I'm not entirely comfortable with the way in which they are dealt with. And I feel like a lot of the stuff she talks about in her video kind of is what's happening in this. And as I think about it, I wonder, get a bit fuzzy on details sometimes, but I'm fairly certain that, like, this is a recurring thing in his writing, and it's just, I'm not super comfortable or okay with it. So, that's, like, a topic to go into with, like, if you're gonna go into this book, go into it with, like, awareness of those sorts of things. I kind of want to reread The Shadow of the Wind now, and see if that's also present in there. But at the same time, I need to wait a while, because I think doing these in such close quarters to each other has made them a slightly less enjoyable experience for me, because there's this repetition that I'm a little bit tired of. So if you are interested in reading any of these, I would recommend you like space them out a bit, just to make your life a bit better. Finally, we're going to end on 2 graphic novels that I got out from the library because I keep breaking my rule about not going to the library. First of all, we have For the Love of God, Marie by Jade Sarsen. I mentioned this ages ago in my Thought Bubble haul because I met her at Thought Bubble. She was on 2 of the panels I went to and she was super interesting. Oh, actually, she was only on 1 of the panels. The first one she was talked about a lot because it was in the best thing I've read all year. Someone mentioned this. And then in the second panel, it was about Ladies Do Comics, and she talked about the actual process of writing this. So having heard that perspective of it, it was really interesting to read this. This tells the story of Marie, who goes to Catholic school in the 60s, 70s, and she fundamentally misunderstands, like, the concept of, like, you must love everyone. She thinks she should just have sex with a lot of people, really. This is great because it has, it's really sex positive, it has exploration of sexuality and of gender topics, that sort of thing. I like the way that the different eras, so this is her childhood, it's red, they change colour a bit. Like this is greeny green, yellowy, you know, like, so where she's at in her life and the sort of the part of the story you're in has different colours based on the different times. And when Jade was talking about when she was writing this, she was sort of describing like the feelings that those colours give you reflect the feelings that that part of the story gives you. So yeah, I can see why everyone was raving about it. I didn't like love it, but I did super enjoy it and I'm really glad I read it. Finally, hopefully I can finish this before the camera dies again, we have Signal to Noise by Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean. This is about a filmmaker who is, he's working on this film about this village in the year 999 AD? AD? Yes, AD 999. And it's this village who are convinced that when the new year comes and it becomes 1000 AD, the world is going to end. But whilst he's working on the film, he finds out that he has terminal cancer. And it's sort of this, he uses his final time, he refuses treatment and he works on this film. And it's like there's this really interesting mirroring of this story he's telling about these people and how they're coping with the perceived end of their world versus how he's coping being faced with the very actual impending fact that his experience of the world will also end soon. I don't super love the art style of it, not because the art is bad, but because it's just a bit dark and creepy sometimes. There's one page which I really like though. I think the art definitely suits the story, it's not my favourite, like, visual art to look at. Oh god, this is the page. I really liked this page here with the face and then coming into the sky and then the people. Just thought that was super lovely. So there's like things about this art which I do like, and I think it's very objectively good. It's just not the type of like comic art which I like adore. But yeah, this was really interesting. Neil Gaiman always gets me thinking about stuff. I'm sorry if this has been a bit long. Had a lot of thoughts on all these things. It's been like an interesting little reading period, a lot of conflicting stuff happening for me, I think. I hope this was interesting. As per usual, if you've read any of them, let me know your thoughts. If you are interested in anything I've said or have questions, just let me know. Or if you've been reading anything wonderful lately, please do give me recommendations, they're always welcome. I hope everything is super good with you, and I will see you next week.